Good evening. Housing goes up the list as one of the most important issues facing Britain today. So Michael Gove, who is Secretary of State for Levelling Up for Housing, Gove's big mission today was to talk about house building. The government have a target of 300,000 new dwellings every year. And yet, for 2023, it's unlikely they'll build more than 160,000. But here is the most significant part of his speech. It's what he didn't say. Michael Gove, in reference to housing, made no comment whatsoever on our net migration last year rising by 745,000. We need to build a new dwelling in our country every 3 minutes, one dwelling every 3 minutes, just to cope with net migration numbers, let alone the shortage that we have already. And when it came to questions, Gove did say that a rising population had an impact. No, Mr. Gove, not an impact. It is the single biggest issue. I'm joined by Mark Homer, co-founder, director of Progressive Property. Mark, you're somebody with a large number of rental properties in Peterborough and around that area. I mean, you must be delighted because the fewer houses we build, the bigger your rental income.
There certainly is a huge shortage, and rents have probably gone up about 40% just since 2016, since the Brexit vote. And that's the core. That is because of a lack of supply of housing. The planning system, obviously, there have been some attacks on landlords, but this today is the new national planning policy framework. And what they should be doing is unveiling, new ideas, ways in which we're going to be able to get to the 300,000. But what I think it actually is the removal of mandatory targets that the councils had to meet, in terms of housing supply.
So the 300,000 figure appears to have gone.
Well, that's news to me. I mean, I didn't hear him say it. But, yeah, I mean, this is right back to David Cameron. 2010, they've had this 300,000 there. But, no, looking at this, I can't see how they're going to do that.
But don't we, Mark, and it's very interesting. When, I was having these debates and leaders' debates in 2015 with the other party leaders when I led UKIP in the general election. And they all talk about supply of housing, as you've talked about. But what about demand? If your population through immigration is going through the roof, your supply has to go up to 3 times what it would without it. There was no acknowledgement from the Secretary of State on housing today of any of that.
Well, quite. I mean, Tony Blair, they had a target of 200,000.
Yeah.
David Cameron comes along, it goes to 300,000. What was net migration back in the Blair days? Well, I don't know, low sort of 200,000.
Well, I mean, even at its highest, it was less than half what it is now.
Yeah. So now we're over 700,000, average of 2 to 2.5 people per dwelling. So simple maths sort of tells you we've had all these years where they've not kept up, and now we're in a situation where the shortage is chronic.
So even if we reach 300,000, all that would do is deal with current net migration levels on the ratios you're talking about, and nothing to do with the backlog.
Absolutely not. Kate Barker wrote a report in 2003 looking at housing supply. There's been subsequent reports since then. We haven't kept pace since that report. And I think before that, you need more than 300,000 to deal with the backlog, and then...
Let alone...
Yeah, and then the new people on top of that.
Now, Gove talked about not building on Greenbelt, and this concept that we don't allow London or Birmingham just to grow exponentially, I rather agree with. The idea of a Greenbelt around the big cities, but we're going to need new towns here somewhere, aren't we?
Well, new towns are clearly the solution. They talk about brownfield sites continually, but there are only so many brownfield sites upon which you can put this. But there is a lot of land which we can develop in this country that isn't Greenbelt. But if you don't have properly funded, properly organised planning departments, and it's done at a local level with local decisions, then you're not going to be able to deliver.
So is planning the major problem in your view?
Planning is definitely the major problem. The planning system in this country is broken. It's dealt with at a local level. It's very political. If we had a sort of US system where it was zoned, and decisions were made based on a clear set of rules, developers would be able to take risk, they would buy, and they would know that they would get planning consent as long as they built in that area to the specifications.
But this gets down to a democratic decision as well. We vote for local councils, we vote for district councils, county councils, unitary authorities. If central government overrules those, what price local democracy?
Well, that's what he's talking about doing. So he says, and if we're to believe him, Gove says that he's going to give them 3 months, and if they don't meet these advisory targets, he's going to take planning decisions off them at a local level and give it to the planning inspectorate, which is the Secretary of State. And somebody will get in a car a planning inspector will get in a car from a long way away, come to a local site and make a decision. That happens now on a refusal.
And then they'll be appealed against through the courts, through the legal processes, and even if the houses do get built, it'll take years.
It absolutely will. Judicial review will go on, and it won't speed things up. And, you know, they're probably going to be gone by the halfway.
Well, this is very interesting, and I agree with this. You know, Gove can say what he likes, but the odds are he won't be housing minister in a year's time. What have Labour got to say about this?
Well, Labour have got this target of 1.5 million houses
in 5 years.
Over 5 years.
So identical to the Tories.
Well, you divide 1.5 by 5 and you get 300,000 a year. So it just looks like more of the same. I haven't seen any new ideas from Starmer apart from we're going to build loads of social housing. But, you know, where are the specifics? Where's it going to be built? Where's the money for it? You know, what is the planning regime? Because that's critical, that's going to enable it. How are you going to incentivise local developers to get building this for the housing associations? None of this is there. It's all very generic.
It's a massive aspect of our national life. And the question that I'm asking the audience, you know, will your kids ever have what you've had, the prospect of owning a house or buying a house or, you know, or even getting on the ladder? We've got no nearer, have we?
I think we've got further away. I think it gets worse and worse every year. I just don't know how this gets fixed. Where is the impetus? Where is the sort of catalyst that changes this? And this just permeates through so many areas of government at the moment.
Mark Homer, Progressive Property, as ever, thank you for coming on and joining us here on GB News. And folks, this is another aspect, in my view, of Broken Britain.